Thank you, and thank you all for having me here this week. This has been the most, it really has filled my cup the last couple of days being here. I've never been to even a women's leadership conference before, a conference where it was all women, and so I've just loved getting to spend this time with all of you, and I'm excited to share a little bit about what we've been working on with all of you here today. So I spent the first 10 years of my career as a professor at the University of Georgia, a professor of quantitative methodology. And so my PhD is in research, evaluation, measurement, and statistics. But I got to assessment and psychometrics via math education. So when I first started my PhD program, I simply wanted to make better math tests. So I had spent some time with the Department of Education in Georgia. And across the state, what we heard over and over from teachers was concerns and frustrations about assessments. And so I pretty naively started the PhD program with like, hey, well, let's make these assessments better. So as I got into the PhD program, I learned something that I feel like if there was one piece of like assessment literacy, we talk about assessment literacy and how everyone could learn more about assessments, but there's just one piece of assessment literacy that I could share with just scream it from the rooftops. It would be this. As I got into the program, like what I realized is the way that our summative assessments are designed and our interim assessments are designed, that's important, both summative and interim, they truly aren't designed under the hood to answer the kind of questions that classroom teachers desperately want answered. And so if you've ever spent any time, you all probably know this intuitively, I'm just affirming from you from a psychometric standpoint, they're designed to measure an overall ability, like sixth grade math, like psychometrics mean metrics is of the mind, or psycho is of the mind, metrics is measure. So we're trying to measure things we can't see. And so a state test, a sixth grade math state test, what it's designed under the hood to do is to measure sixth grade math ability. And so as I saw this, I was like, okay, well, how can we do something different? And so out of that, I founded a company called Navvy. And so Navvy is a formative classroom assessment system. And it really came out of like research of like, hey, we could do this type of methodology. We could use this type of statistics and this type of design and do something different in the classroom. And so what I want to, I didn't even tell you about my pictures. So this is many of you who I've met here have your PhD or EDD. So you've been through your hooding ceremony. These are a couple of students that I've hooded at Georgia. One graduated in the summer, Madeline, and so we just did it right outside ourselves. And then this was at the Coliseum at Georgia. But I want to start with, I want to tell you a little bit about, like, why is that, like, you think about, we've talked about so many fun things this week, and when the introduction around, hey, we're going to talk about data and assessments and getting student outcomes, it's like, is that still exciting, right? But I want to start with an analogy of, like, why does validity, to help us answer the question of why does validity and reliability even matter in classroom assessments? Like, we're so obsessed with it in summative assessments. Like, we really want to get that scaled score correct for students. We want to pass federal peer review and have technical merit. But why does it matter in a classroom assessment setting? So I want to start with an analogy. So I want to ask you this. In 2025, many people set a word of the year or an intention for the year. So I want you to think to yourself, like, what was your word of the year, if you set one? Mine was health. And so to share a couple of statistics with you, 79% of Americans had some kind of like resolution for the year or word of the year that had health-related things in it. But only 9% self-reported persisting and implementing the intention related to health that they set out. And so for me, my health journey, I had my favorite two-digit number is 14, so I set out 14 things that I wanted to work on with health in 2025. And the first one was sleep. And so as I was scrolling one night, not sleeping, I saw an ad for a Garmin watch. And it was like, the Garmin watch tracks sleep metrics so much better than the Apple Watch. And so I was like, okay, I'll get a Garmin watch and I'll get these sleep metrics. So that my first thing to work on was sleep, but I was laying there another night and I was just playing with the watch and I was like, oh, it has stress metrics. Like, this is really interesting. And so right here is a screenshot from 2 different days on my phone of my stress metrics. The first one is January 20th, and what you see on this graph at the bottom is time, like the hours of the day. The height of the graphs is like higher stress, and the colors of the bars are stress levels. And so on this Monday, January 20th, it's nice and blue and low. It's just an easy day. And then on Tuesday, 4 hours and 47 minutes of medium level stress and 3 hours and 43 minutes of high level stress, like dangerous levels of stress. Like, that was my day. Does anyone have any hypotheses what might have been different about Monday, January 20th, and Tuesday, January 21st? Yeah. Monday was a holiday. I hung out with my nibblings, my nieces and nephews, and Tuesday was just a run-of-the-mill day at work. There was nothing, like, if you'd asked me, were you stressed that day, I would have been like, no, I had a great day. We were killing it. We got so many things done. I love what I do. I had a great day. And so it was a real wake-up call. My watch is nudging me things, like saying things to me like, high stress today has drained your battery. On days like this, try to take breaks. Consider some light exercise, some outdoor activities. So it's really a wake-up call. I mean, the data around stress related to cancer is really, really strong. And, like, my work days are just like this over and over and over. And so I was like, okay, I've got to do something. So I was laying there. I was like, well, how do you reduce stress? You know, and it's like, well, sleep more. And I'm like, well, I'm stressed. I think I'm not sleeping because I'm stressed. But anyway, so I was just like, well, how, like, right now, like, how can I go back to sleep and do this? And it was like, gave me a breathing exercise. And so just really easy, like, inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds. Do that, and it will regulate your nervous system, and your stress will go down. And so I did that, and then the next day I thought about it, and I was like, well, did that really work? And I looked back, and yes, it reduced my stress levels. And so this whole concept of using data, biometric data, to regulate your health is a concept called biohacking. How many of you have heard of biohacking? How many of you have a Garmin or Apple Watch on right now, and you watch your metrics? So many people in here. And so the general concept is you've got to measure something in a detailed, real-time way, and then you've got to act on it. You've got to experiment and say, okay, I want to do something about that. And then you look back at a new measurement, and you say, did that work? And so as I was thinking about biohacking, and, like, of course I was getting excited about this because it's data, I was like, this is exactly what we're trying to do with Navvy, with the system that we built with a formative assessment system. And so how does biohacking relate to student learning? Learning really is a system. I was thinking about was it vacuum? What was the initialism that had the complexity? Yeah. Yes, I was like, which one is it? Like, learning? It's so complex. There's a lot going on there. But it is a system, and it is tunable if we could get the right metrics in place, the right experiments in place, and the right remetrics in place. And so all of this that I'm sharing here is from a webinar. If you want to look at, like, the full, this is going to be kind of quick, but if you want to, like, listen to the full version, you can find it online. Just EduHacking and type in my name. But what and the why of EduHacking? So what is it? So EduHacking is an intentional, personalized, data-informed approach to optimizing teaching and learning. So the general principle is the same. We've got to get precise enough measurements about what kids know and what they don't know. They've got to generate the right insights for a student, a teacher, for all of you. And then we've got to iterate on what works. And so our whole goal with Navvy is to make this idea of personalized learning something that's actually, like, sustainable and realizable. And what I would submit to all of you is the measures don't exist. Like, We wouldn't have built Navvy if the measures existed in a really fine-grained way. So the why. So there's so many programs in education. We're spending billions of dollars on education. Why does someone need to build another assessment system? This is the NAEP trend data that most of you have seen, but it is a really interesting phenomenon that all of us are pouring our hearts into education. There's so many programs, there's so many pieces of software and things that you can purchase and practices, but if you really step back, we're not moving the needle generally on what kids can know, understand, and do with math and English over time on these national assessments that are trying to give us that steady glance. We really haven't figured it out. So what's possible? So I think this is what's stressing me out, is I do think it's possible. I think it's we could get more systematic about what we're measuring, how we're intervening, and then what we do next, but it's just a very complicated process to put together. So I want to share a couple of, I want to bring Navvy to life for you and share generally how is it different than what you see in your classrooms all of the time. So just big picture, what we're aiming to do is monitor progress in a standard by standard way. And you're probably thinking, well, how is that any different than the 10 products I already purchased? You may even have a product that has this exact view. The biggest difference is the way we're generating the check and the X has a level of technical rigor, validity, and reliability that doesn't exist anywhere else. And so I'll say from a measurement standpoint, everyone petitions the state, hey, can you please give us standards level feedback from our state assessment? We just want to know a child isn't proficient, but what standards do they know? What standards do they still need help to learn? And your states are often not going to give you a report that has standards level information because it is not valid and reliable. They would not feel good about hey, here, go help this child on this standard based on this one question on our state test. Just if I shot one free throw on the basketball court and I missed it, you wouldn't send me down a path to work on my free throws for 2 hours. You'd probably want me to maybe shoot 10 and then watch me do some layups, watch me shoot some three-pointers, and then say, hey, we need to work on this thing because I have more evidence that that's where you really need help. So state tests are going to have 0 to 2 questions per standard in a given subject. They're not your spot to tell you what kids know and don't know at a standards level. Now, your interim assessment providers, if you say you want a report and you'd like to take a 15-minute test and then personalize instruction for every child, they're going to say, great, here, take our 15-minute test, and we'll tell you everything you need to know about a child. They're not beholden by the same technical standards of validity and reliability as your state summative provider is. Same thing with all of the ed tech stuff that your classroom teachers have access to. A lot of it is based on 1 or 2 items, and it doesn't use psychometrics. And so we still give a lot of assessments and have a lot of programs, but we never know what kids know and what they don't know. All that to say, I could summarize my career for you, and it's coming up with a methodology where we can give your teachers this check and the X, and they can trust that the child really does still need help on that standard, or they don't. And so if we take a child or let's go to the next screen. So let's just say that you're in your classroom and you've taught expressions and equations 8. You're a 6th grade math teacher. So you stop and give a Navvy competency check. They're all pre-built for teachers, and they're all scored for teachers, and students have a dashboard as well as all of you would have a dashboard. When students click submit, they're going to get their results. They're competent in the standard. They still need help on the standard. And then the main teacher move is we're going to sort how students did on 6EE8 and see, okay, Neve, Piper, and Trevor all need help on this standard. And my teacher move from there is to give them additional instructional support on that standard. So just like my Garmin watch is hey, your stress level is high, then I'm okay, I need to work on stress. And then it's going to be okay, what are you going to do about it? And so then the classroom teacher would say, okay, here's my intervention on this standard. We do have a set of supplemental focused standard by standard instructional resources that we have added to the platform in the last couple of years, because that was the number one question that we were getting from teachers is okay, Laine, I know that Neve, Piper, and Trevor all need help on 6E8, but I use my primary curriculum, I taught my heart out, what should I do differently? Just like when I had high stress, I was like, what do I do differently? How do I reduce my stress? And so from there, the teacher could help those 3 students on that standard. And so what we're trying to do is, if a teacher is going to take the time to do differentiated learning, small group instruction with these 3 students on this one standard, we want that to be a productive action to take, not just action. Like, we can miss this diagnosis, this identification in both directions. We can say a child needs help on a standard and they don't, then we're boring them to death and wasting time and resources. We can say a child does need, or we can say a child doesn't need help and they do, and then we're leaving that gap in learning. So for each child, they have a learning profile, and it's just based on the standards that they've learned and standards that they still need help to learn. Children in Navvy are on a mission to collect a digital badge for each standard that they've learned, and so everything on their dashboards is messaged with like a healthy learning mindset, but we want them to have the agency to say, I'm going to go work on this standard, just like giving me those metrics on my wrist, give me the agency to say, how can I help my stress level? What we're really excited about is this learning map. So in education, so I did a lot of research at Georgia. There's lots of brilliant researchers across the country, lots of theories about how standards relate to each other. But until you build a measure, like until I can actually measure each one of these standards with something that's valid and reliable, we can't empirically validate how those standards are related to each other. So to say that differently, what we're really interested in is we're carrying results with children across grade levels. And so if a child is struggling on 6EE8, it may be the prerequisite standard that they didn't yet learn. Maybe that standard is the 6th grade standard, maybe it's the 5th grade or the 4th grade. Now this is getting highly multidimensional. Like there's 30 standards in 6th grade math, there's 30 in 5th, there's 30 in 4th. So like one classroom teacher, this child needs help on 6EE8. Like there is so much information needed to know how to help that child. So we're really interested in these learning maps. So if you click on a given standard, it's going to show you the prerequisite standards, and the classroom teacher can go in and assign some practice problems or learning activities on those prerequisite standards. But what we're doing under the hood is getting closer to the concept of biohacking. We're really getting into edu-hacking and saying, classroom teacher, you don't have to know what's under the hood. We actually know the relationships or the correlations between these standards, and we can recommend these smart sets that helps the child have a practice set on the standard they need help on, but also the prior standards that they need help on. And so we're doing this in just a methodologically more rigorous way by having a sound measure for each individual standard for the child. At the school district level, most relevant to all of you, like our school district admins are getting excited about the concept of edu-hacking too. Now they sit with a dashboard that's always up to date. Each row here is a standard. And the green proportion shows the proportion of students who've learned a given standard. So in your school district, you can sit there and log into your dashboard and say, hey, what percentage of our 3rd graders have learned this standard? And you can see that right from your dashboard. But more interesting, you can say like, hey, what are the 3 hardest 5th grade math standards for our teachers to teach in our district? Like less direct professional learning resources to those 3 hardest standards. Or what we're more interested in is what are the 3 highest leverage 5th grade math standards? Which 3 standards unlock learning for the most next standards? Let's focus resources on those standards. We are doing a lot of research in the background to try to study impact. So Navvy was founded 8 years ago, and one of our longest standing districts started with me in year 1. When the 2024 NAEP results came out, there was no state that had recovered their pre-pandemic scores on math and English, but there were about 100 districts across the country who did. And one of these districts using Navvy who had gotten really serious about their implementation is one of those districts who recovered. And so we're seeing that impact translate to one of the most common student outcome measures, our state assessment results. So what does this mean for all of you? I think the biggest thing is what we're trying to put in the hands of teachers, students, and for all of you leaders is data that you can trust so that you can go confidently in the direction of better. How many of you have heard of the What Works Clearinghouse? Yeah. Most of that is based on like broad measures like 6th grade math or 4th grade English. So we're essentially trying to figure out what works for teaching at an individual standard by standard level so that we can raise that overall 4th grade math score by getting better at teaching each individual 4th grade math standard. Thank you all.